Susie's over here is looking at me like getting nervous, man.
And mostly when it comes to the hormone status of your biopsy, roughly 2 out of 3 times, usually your breast cancer is due to this. And like we talked about, we're going to give either medication that lowers that hormone or it blocks its complete function so it doesn't grow and doesn't function anymore, basically killing off the cancer. The more complex one is the HER2 status, and that's another, it's called a human epidermal growth factor receptor. And it plays a very significant role in breast cancer, and it's usually tested by two of them. It's called IHC or the FISH, and it's just a method of testing for it. And it breaks it down into like 0 to +3. If it's 0 to +1, more than likely you're HER2 negative is what we call it, and you're not going to respond to treatments and drugs of that. If you're +3, you're definitely positive for HER2, meaning HER2 positive is that receptor that's affecting or that's basically starting all this mess in your cancer, or in your breast cancer, I should say. And HER2 is unknown, so they're 50-50. So usually if you do an IHC test, you're going to do the FISH test to find out more definitely what's going on to clarify your results.
Yeah, and then HER2. So HER2 is found in everybody. Everyone has a HER2 gene. A HER2 gene, or I guess it's technically a receptor. So they help manage how a breast cell grows and repairs itself. So we all need a HER2, to have healthy breasts and healthy cell proliferation and growth. The issue is if there's an abnormality in this HER2, it doesn't know what cells to repair and doesn't know when to stop growing. And according to our research, about 25% of breast cancer patients have a improperly functioning HER2 gene.
Yeah. So what starts happening is it starts over expressing itself. So it just starts over replicating and it doesn't know what's going on. And it's growing in an uncontrolled fashion because, as you know, cells die and they replicate, which is fine. It's all part of life. And then we have this overexpression. And that's basically what the biopsy is going to tell you. These two most important things, whether you were treating the cancer based on hormone reasons or treating the cancer based on HER2 reasons. There's also something called the triple negative. And you could touch about it.
Okay, for sure. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Matthew. So I've never heard about this triple negative until a couple of days ago where we did this research, and this is actually somewhere pretty crazy. So a triple negative. So how Matt said we do a biopsy to see kind of how to treat the breast cancer or what's actually going on. So if you have triple negative cancer, you're negative for the HER2, which means you have an abnormal HER2 gene and you cannot treat it. And then you're also negative for ER, which is estrogen, and you're also negative for progesterone. So a medication that affects HER2 is not going to do any effect. And also medication that's going to slow down estrogen is not going to do any effect either. And now also progesterone medication is not going to do anything either. So you're kind of really stuck in a horrible place. This isn't a very common cancer, but actually it's 10 and 20%.
Yeah.
So it's fairly common, I guess. I mean, it's not fairly common, but it does happen to people. And this is probably one of the hardest things to treat because 3 medications that we could give you are not going to work.
Because there's no receptors on those cancer cells themselves to be responsive to this.
Right. Same way where you have like blood, your A, your B, and your AB blood. Those are the receptors. Those are the checking what kind of blood you could get.
Antigens, yeah.
And antigen antibodies. And these don't have any of them. So none of these drugs are going to be reliable for it. It's very scary to have.
And you're likely to have this if you're African American, young, Hispanic, and if you have the BRCA gene mutation. So now we're going to digress from the biopsy and we're going to go into cancer and genetics, which is a little bit more on the tricky side.
See, I really like genetics. Genetics has always fascinated me. So genetics, like we talked about, it only affects about 5 to 10% of cancers, but it's still relevant. A lot of times it's more environmental than anything else, but it does still occur. And there's one test that they could do, and it's called the BRCA1 and BRCA2. So everybody has a BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. The function of BRCA genes is to repair cells and keep breast, ovarian, and any other cells growing properly. Same with like the gene that Matt said, the HER2. So we both need them. But the issue is there's an abnormality in these genes. So the crazy thing about this gene is women are prone to getting cancer 1 in 8. But if you have an abnormality in this gene, your chance of getting cancer go from 12% to 72%.
Wow.
So you're almost 6 times likely to get cancer based on this. And this gene is probably the most popular one that they test for. It's hereditary. So if your mom has it or your dad has it, they could pass it onto you. I know we talked about Angelina Jolie, right? Was that her one that got her breast removed?
She had a double mastectomy.
Yeah, so she got, because I believe her mom had breast cancer, or her mom had the BRCA abnormality or the BRCA gene, and so did her grandma. So she was very prone to getting it as well. So she didn't want to risk it. So she just would just take off my breast.
And you never know. Maybe she went to the doctor and she already had like lymph node cancer cells, and she didn't want to risk it spreading, and she just preferred getting both done.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have cases that a woman will get one mastectomy on one side, and then a few years later or 4 years later, let's just say, you get another mastectomy because the cancer has spread there.
And you could live with a BRCA mutation. Like, people live with that. But the fact that you have a 72% chance of getting cancer is, if I was a female, I probably would think of maybe even going the Angelina Jolie route and then just getting both my breasts removed, because you do have a 72% chance of getting breast cancer, which is pretty crazy. Like, you have a 38% chance of not getting it, or 28%. Which it's super scary, man.
It is. And then same thing when it comes to like genes. We're gonna go into the HER2 really quick. Sometimes you could be HER2 negative, and then years down the line, you could go into readmission, or it happens again, you could be HER2 positive, because that gene is more based on environment, guys. And that's why genes turn on and off. And just because, like Peter said, just because you're predisposed doesn't mean you're always going to have breast cancer, but you just have a higher chance. And it really just matters about your lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad we're going this deep in genetics, because at one point we did not know anything about the BRCA gene. And people were getting breast cancer we were not sure from where. But now we actually know, hey, if you have a BRCA abnormality, your chance of getting breast cancer are, almost 6 times more likely than a regular average person that doesn't have the BRCA mutation. But it's also scary that you have BRCA mutation and you might not get it. So it's kind of crazy how our genes, flip on and off. And that's all due to environment, stress.
And it's crazy how we as sciences have evolved. We started where, cell is a small component, and it's, then we go into atoms, and then now we have a cell wall. There's an animal cell wall, and we go so deep into it. Then we find out what's going on with the body and how everything is functioning, and we're still trying to map out the brain. And now we're going into the smallest form of information, which is the DNA. And then now DNA, we could go into literally gene sequencing and find out how these genes are turning on and off, and how on a big level they're affecting our life.
Yeah, it's
mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. Like, there's so much unexplored stuff that, in Earth, like, we haven't explored any of the oceans, but we haven't even explored ourselves to the fullest either. And I like how this is progressing.
Moral of the story, stay curious.
That's what I'm saying.
Stay curious all the time. I wonder who said that. Maybe Einstein, I believe.
Probably. Something he would say.
He's a curious man.
Yeah.
He's a curious George.
Yeah. You know what?
Let's go into... Peter has a thought right now. Let's
this is completely off topic. I know some people believe in that, when you die, you become somebody else, like another human.
Reincarnation?
Like reincarnation. And they're saying that, you have deja vu, or you kind of know certain things and you don't know how you learned that. I've been having a lot of those lately.
Interesting. Maybe your aunt is talking to you from another life.
Maybe myself from other life is talking to me.
Yeah, different dimensions.
Some shit.
And